problem.
Yes, you're live now. Okay. Welcome, ma'am. Manju ma'am, it's great to have you with us. Very nice that you spared your time and came to us to speak with our students. I will just give a brief introduction and then it'll be over to you. Okay. So Srimati Manju Seth is a career diplomat and a former ambassador and consul general of India. Her last assignment was as ambassador of India to Madagascar and Comoros. She has served in different capacities in the Ministry of External Affairs and various embassies abroad. She brings with her extensive experience in India as well as abroad in dealing with diverse issues relating to international relations, governance, policy matters, administration, publicity, media, protocol, culture, international affairs, and economics and commercial matters. She has participated in conferences and delivered lectures on various subjects, including on diaspora, gender issues, women's empowerment, cross-cultural communication, soft skills, international relations, as well as economic and business related issues. She contributes articles and comments on various foreign affairs related subjects. She has also published a book of poems in English called The Fifth Element. Ambassador Seth is an advisor for international collaboration with Organization for Diaspora Initiatives, or ODI, and an advisor with Ambra Foundation, which works on women's empowerment issues. I'm sure you will have great learning this afternoon and benefit from all the experiences that she shares with us. Over to you, ma'am.
Namaskar to everyone. Thank you. It is such a pleasure to be here. And of course, I can't see everyone, but it's really very interesting to know that most of you are new students. And to begin your initial sort of college or whatever course you're doing virtually is not the very best of ways to do it, but it is still better than not having any connectivity. So, you know, the way the world has changed with internet connection, with technology. I mean, Zoom has become our lifeline, literally, you know, during these last almost 2 years, you know. Webinars are on Zoom, lectures are on Zoom, everything is on Zoom or Google, whichever the various other platforms that are there. And it is interesting that even businesses, global businesses are now being conducted. I mean, earlier also there used to be some initial, these things on the phone or on video conferences. But now, after during the pandemic, a lot of business negotiations are conducted, international business negotiations and business deals have been concluded like this on these virtual platforms. So it is an important development that we have these tools available with us. And now, today I'll be talking a bit about, sorry, I'm so sorry, communication and etiquette in global business. A little bit, of course, I'll be talking a bit on the theoretical aspect and a bit about my experiences that I've had over the years in different embassies working abroad and with different nationalities as well. Though I was not posted in some of the countries that I might mention briefly, but I've had interaction with these communities in other businesses with who are from other countries who are based in those countries. And it is interesting that the cultural differences play a role. There are some similarities, and now because the globalized world, everybody is becoming more and more similar, and everybody is adapting a similar approach to doing things. But even then, even today, I find there are still some cultural differences and which we are not aware of sometimes, and sometimes if even though we are aware, we forget. And so we have to keep these cultural differences, cultural approaches in mind when we're interacting and dealing with people from different nationalities. Also, in today's globalized world, we find that people from different backgrounds, from different countries, are working in a multinational organization. And so it is important that we follow certain norms, and we just be aware and be sensitive when dealing with other nationalities. So I will just try and share the screen. I did it earlier. I hope I can do it again. Give me a moment, please. Has it come? I don't know.
No, no, ma'am, not yet. Not yet. You have to go on that green button. I hope the file was open earlier, because otherwise Zoom does not allow it.
Yeah, it's lying open at the back. So
it should. Then you just have to say share, and then it will ask you which one. There, yes, ma'am, it's there. Yes, we can see it now.
So as I mentioned, as a globalization of the economy has happened, and therefore communication and etiquette have become more and more important. There's a diverse workforce, and work from home has further added to the diversity, because you can hire anywhere, anytime, and have them as part of your business team. And along with instant e-communication, they have transformed how companies do businesses. Communication across cultures and practice of appropriate etiquette is vital. Why do I say that? Because sometimes we don't, sometimes we say, we in India like to say a namaste. And of course, in the pandemic times, namaste is the best form of greeting. And you would have seen in the various international meetings that take place, a few in-person meetings, the new thing has come of either, greeting with the elbow or just doing a fist. So these are all these forms of, greetings that have taken over the world, and different people are adapting and adopting. And that's the key word: to adapt and to adopt and to understand. So communication is important, because if you want to have, because businesses, if you know how business is conducted, whether it is trade or it's joint ventures, or it is importing, exporting, or setting up in another country, or facilitating another company in your country, you have to be able to communicate and develop an interpersonal relationship. Because if you don't do that, then it will not be so successful, and it may not take off at all. Now, I just, by the way, remembered one incident about when Renault, the Renault car, manufacturers. At that time, I was posted in Paris, and I found that they had come to India already. When I went there, they were already here. I didn't even know that they were here already at that time, because they were just exploring some possibilities. And then one day, someone told me, or when I come to India, I think I saw there some cars on the road. And when I went there, I had seen this Logan, the Renault Logan car. And the chap there at the showroom in Paris was telling me I must buy a Logan. I said, no, I don't like a Logan at all. I don't like the look of it. It's so ugly. I was very frank. I was a little rude. I shouldn't have been, but I was most undiplomatic. And I said, I don't like this at all. It's an ugly car. So, and it's so huge, and it's ugly. So he said, no, it's one of our best cars. And then he just mentioned in passing that it is in, we are sending it to India. I said, oh, I see. Okay. And I just forgot all about it. But when I was working, when I was in the office one day, I got a call to say that someone had come to see me from Renault. So I said, all right, please ask them to come. And they came with a litany of complaints, They were so upset, saying India has been so bad for us, and India, we are closing our operations there. We were looking forward to being in India, and now we are very, very upset. I said, why? What happened? I mean, everything is, India is facilitating everything for everybody. He said, no, that is okay. Facilitation was there. But, we are not going to go into that country. We are closing all operations. I said, that's true. Okay, if that's what you want. But really, what has happened? Which car have you taken there? He said, Logan. And, I already knew about that Logan being ugly and nobody in India would drive it. And I'd also seen once when I was going to the airport, one of the times when I was going to France, I'd seen that it was being used as a taxi. So I told him I said, look, that Logan, no one in India from the, it was in that time, it was in the 7 lakh or some category, so it's a upper end category. I said, no one is going to buy that car. They said, why? It's such a good car. I said, I'm sorry, you might think it's very good, but look at your other cars. Look at the car that I have now finally got in your country. You have to have a salon, and you have to have a proper car, and you have to price it right. And you have to understand what the Indians want. You can't just say because you like it, they should like it automatically. So the cultural difference, and assuming that because it is India, third world country, we can dump anything. That attitude has changed now, but it is still there at the back of the mind, in most people's mind, that they are, poor, and that they are, IT savvy, yes, but beyond that, we can dictate terms. That's the general attitude. It was. Now it has changed a great deal, but still a little bit at the back of the mind. So it was a very interesting experience that I had. So I told them, I said, they said, then what should we do? I said, what you need to do, it was just, it was a conversation. It wasn't an advice or anything, but I just said, have you seen what is available in India? Have you seen Toyota? The Toyota cars are so smooth to drive. Renault cars are so difficult to drive. Then, I gave them a few examples, and I said, have you seen Maruti? Maruti is so terrific. Look at the price range and look at how smoothly it runs and how much petrol efficiency it gives. So I gave him a few of these examples, and he kept on getting more and more annoyed. Like, this is a female and she's Indian and giving me advice. I'm French. He had that look on him. Anyway, I said, it's up to you, but I'm sorry for being so, undiplomatic and so frank, but this is what I feel, that Logan definitely is not your car for India. So he said, okay, if you say so, but we are closing operations. I said, all right, up to you. And two of them had come actually. One of them was their local person, and one was the India head who was also coming back, because they said, we are closing operations. So I said, all right, up to you. And that was the end of our conversation. But very interestingly, about 6 months later, 6 or so months later, the India head came to see me. And I said, oh, but you've closed your operations now. I said, no, we haven't. As a matter of fact, after the conversation with you, we have reviewed everything and we've done our research, and we are going back and we're going to expand. We're going to and I also told you we should manufacture in India. Why are you manufacturing from here and exporting there, So, it's just off the cuff remarks, I had given. So it was just, general no business advice, but it was just a general conversation. So he said, fine. We have reviewed our whole policy and we understand now, and we've looked at our research again. I think we had not done our research, and we thought like this, we thought that, and we assumed, etc., whatever. And he said, now we are going back, and this is what we are doing. These are the cars, all the range we are going to go to, and we're going to set up our factories in collaboration with Nissan in Chennai, etc., etc. So it was very interesting, and they had done it in a year's time. In a year's time, it was up and running, and now Renault is quite popular. It became, even then, they were able to scale up. And so it was essentially, I think, a lack of communication across cultures. And they assumed a lot of things. And so I think that was just an example I wanted to give of how important communication is. Communication and cultural sensitivity and knowledge. And of course, it is very etiquette, basic etiquette. If you don't have, you will never be able to, establish, a rapport with anyone. But so that is one aspect. And of course, proper work clothes always. Interpersonal skills are very important, both within your colleagues in your own team and business partners, with business partners or with others. So this is a little bit about, I think this is a little academic, but I just thought I'd put in a little bit about what is cross-cultural communication. It is also referred to as intercultural communication. And it looks at how to communicate with people from differing cultural backgrounds and how they endeavor to communicate across cultures. So you need to understand that. And intercultural communication is also the interpersonal reaction between members of different groups in the social and work environments. For instance, when we are, or anyone is working abroad, for instance, how do you interact? How do you establish a working relationship? How do you increase business for your country, for your company? Because unless you're able to communicate, because sometimes you can be, Indians sometimes can be very brusque, or informal. But some people may not like that, they want a certain etiquette to be followed. And good manners are very, very important everywhere, every time. So that is another aspect which needs to be kept in mind whenever you're doing global business. So intercultural communication assumes importance in today's globalized world, as I said earlier, and in the multinational and the multicultural and the diverse background. And all companies across the world are looking at cultural diversity when they are recruiting. And because they will come and recruit locally whenever they have an office in any country. Any company, for instance, Renault in India or any other company in India will recruit locally. They might have 1 or 2 people from their home countries, but more and more people are recruiting in the hotel industry. If you look at, there also it is all the locals are being hired. So the managers there need to be able to communicate with them to understand what are their sensitivities and not impose their own thinking on the locals. For instance, in Thailand, I don't know if many of you may have been to Thailand, but the interaction there that you have in the hotels, how polite they are, how even the people as a people, the Thais are so positive and so positive, and they don't want to say no to you for anything. So you have to remember that sometimes they may become uncomfortable. So you have to be aware of that. Are they uncomfortable, or are they saying yes just because in their culture it's not nice to say no to anyone, especially to a customer? So all these aspects are very important when you are in an international and global business scenario. So along with professional qualifications, yes, it's very good that you are very well qualified and you have high competence. You have to have proper behavior and gender sensitivity. And as Dr. Shoma mentioned, I have been involved in this quite a bit. Even before, it's a subject to gender sensitivity and women's empowerment have been issues that have been close to my heart over the years, because you see it at every step, not only in India, everywhere. When I talk of gender, I'm again going to sort of digress from here for a moment. When I was the ambassador in Madagascar, for instance, it was assumed that I'm not the ambassador, because I would be introduced as Madam Ambassadress. That's the in French way of saying it. And they would say, okay, she's Madam Ambassadress, how nice. And where is Sir? Where is the ambassador? So it was amazing. And they had to say, no, she's the ambassador. No, she's Madam Ambassadress. It would just go on. And I would keep saying, and the person with me would keep saying, no, she's the ambassador. Oh, okay, with great difficulty they would acknowledge it. Then when we hosted the Republic Day reception, the card went out from my name. I mean, it's there on the card. But at the same time, again, even at that reception, guests were coming in. We normally stand at the gate and, welcome everybody when they're coming, the guests. And again, at least 4 or 5 people who came and said, and they said, this is Madam Ambassadress, and said, but where is the ambassador? So my husband very, very gallantly said, no, I'm not the ambassador. I am so-and-so, but I'm the husband. She's the ambassador, So it was a constant thing that we faced. It's patriarchal mindset or just a cultural thing. I don't know what it is, but even now it hasn't gone away completely. And it's a long battle ahead, I think, before that changes. So, that kind of gender, what should I say, putting you down or assuming if you're a woman, you will not be able to do business, or you will not be able to, So that's the other thing. When with Indian, there was a businesswoman who came to see me once, and she wanted to connect with an Indian business person, and we connected them. But from the Indian side, it came, no, we want to talk to her, to the chief. So she kept saying, I'm the chief. They said, no, we want to talk to your boss. So it was a very strange kind of, mindset that people have. So anyway, so as I said, gender sensitivity is very important. Of course, leadership skills are required. Basic manners and etiquette are attributes in today's competitive and multicultural world. Cross-cultural awareness is key to successful negotiations. For negotiations also, if you do not have awareness of how the other person is reacting to you or taking your, your proposals, whether they're accepting it or not. You have to be very culturally sensitive. In this connection, suddenly I remembered one thing. And when I was in Thailand, for instance, we had gone, I'd gone with the ambassador. I was not the ambassador then, but I'd gone with the ambassador for a meeting. And it was a very important, discussion that we had gone for. We had gone to give the Indian proposal for something, and we wanted them to say yes. So, and we wanted them, their support, Thailand's support. So we had gone to see the minister, and of course we gave our point of view, they gave their point of view. And at the end of it, they said, we are very supportive of your proposal. So I assumed it was yes. I was new at that time. I hadn't realized that there are these subtleties in how the Thais put it across, and they don't say no. They're very supportive of your proposal. So I said, oh, great, they've said yes. I assumed immediately that yes, if they're supportive, they are saying yes. So my ambassador had been there already for about 2 years. So she told me, how could you assume that? Don't you know the Thais? They will never say they don't support you. But this is absolutely a way of saying that they don't. They are not supporting you. I said, but he just said, I'm very supportive of your proposal. She said, no. If they wanted to say support, they would have said, yes, we support you. But they said, we are very supportive of your proposal. And this happens even in businesses. You have to understand the nuances of how they communicate, because they don't want to say no straight away. So they'll put it or couch it in other words, in another manner, so that you don't feel bad. But at the same time, they've said, yes, we support in principle, but we may not be able to help you that much, but, we support you. So, sorry, so that was another awareness, that is another incident that I recall. So cross-cultural awareness is very important to successful negotiations, and to understand when they're saying yes and when they are saying no, along, of course, with social niceties and integrity. You have to be very, if your integrity isn't, if you do something and you say something and you don't deliver, that always leaves a very, very negative impact. Of course, within the country, also within your own social milieu, it will create a very bad impact, but definitely across across cultures. If you're trying to do a business deal, it will impact on your business very badly. And in recent years, etiquette has become even more important, because you have to have your internet, virtual etiquette is there, you have your phone etiquette, you have your writing etiquette. All those have become even more important than, your face-to-face etiquette. So it is very important, and we must always keep in mind that if you don't know what constitutes etiquette, then we need to educate ourselves. It's a very important aspect of communication and for global business, for any global deal. So the need for intercultural communication in business arises due to the cultural diversity across the world in terms of language, religion, race, gender, and social norms. And for a business to grow, cultural diversity has to be acknowledged. If we don't acknowledge it, we are likely to not be able to make inroads into other countries. And it has become, communication has become strategically important due to the growth of global businesses, technology, and the internet, and even as companies have a more and more diverse workforce. So it is necessary to understand the concept of culture and recognize that differences exist, and it needs to be kept in mind. We must acknowledge differences, and we must keep this in mind, that, we are not identical. And they think in a different way. We have our own cultural thinking and cultural conditioning. They have their own. Whether it is, and especially I find when we, for instance, in Madagascar or in any of the other African countries, Indians tend to have a slightly, not arrogant, but a slightly superior attitude sometimes. And that can be a big block to any business negotiation or any business deal going through. Because if you don't understand that they are different, but at the same time, you have to give full respect. If you do not respect the other person, it will always be a challenge for you. It will be not good for you or for your company. And we need to acknowledge the challenges and learn to manage intercultural and cross-cultural communication in a diverse workforce, and also with business associates. Whenever we are doing a deal or we want them to set up a joint venture, we should be able to be on the same page, as they say. How can we define culture? Briefly, I'll just touch on this. It can be defined as being acquired by learned experience. What you've learned over the years in your homes, is culture. Sorry. People as members of a group or organization of a society or in a society share culture. So we have an Indian culture, we have a Western culture, we have a Southeast Asian culture, we have a Chinese culture, or a Japanese culture. So each, as a member of a group, organization, or a society, they share a culture. But it's not necessary that each one in that culture is identical. But by and large, they will have some commonalities. And it can be defined as a group which shapes values and identity. And cultural identity is very often based on race, ethnicity, class, religion, country of origin, and also geographic region. As I just mentioned, you can have Southeast Asian culture, Western culture. It won't be across same in every part of that or every element of that country or region, but as some things will be common. And a culture is normally transgenerational and passed down from generation to generation, usually. Of course, now with globalization and TV and internet and the influence of Western movies, etc., there's a lot of some homogenization and some intermixing, but broadly we can understand it as that. So this is just a little more about culture. It could be implicit or unconscious. You don't even realize sometimes. And it constitutes norms, values, perceptions, and it can be explicit and conscious also sometimes, language, verbal, non-verbal. Your non-verbal cues also when you are communicating are important. Sometimes when you look at a person, you can see that they're talking about something, but they're not really convinced about it, or they are not really convinced about your proposal that you have given them. You can make out when you're talking. So the verbal cues, or they are saying yes, 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 but not really with that enthusiasm. So you can make out that they're not really going to go ahead with the deals. When you're talking with other business countries, businesses from other countries, businessmen from other countries, or business persons, you will realize that what is happening is that maybe it's a one-way communication sometimes, or they are just not on the same page as you. They don't agree with what you're saying, but they're being polite enough not to say so. But eventually they will say, we'll get back to you. And so that very often is, we will get back to you is a way of saying no, very often. Only sometimes it is to consider more aspects, but very often. So these are these cues, verbal cues and non-verbal cues that you get when communicating. And of course, know-how, if there are some communication codes or some tools, etc., which can be used, that of course is in different languages, they will have that. Then institutions, collective organization modes, family education, etc., are also a kind of you have the religious institutions which decide how your behavior, your cultural aspects, and you have the temples deciding what you do in some countries. You have the church deciding, or you have family, or your education system if you've gone to. So they will determine, or you will get, or your cultural conditioning will depend on this. On this institution that you've been to or you're associated with. And visible behavior is also a part of culture, that is habits. Some people would want to eat with their hands. Some people would want to eat only with the fork and spoon. Traditionally, some would eat on a banana leaf. Some would not want to eat or would eat only on a steel plate or something like, or on the traditional plates. So all that is a part of of our cultural ethos. Clothing, of course, we have the saris in India, we have the dhoti kurtas here, we have the chulidar kurtas, and so many other clothes that we consider cultural as well as traditional in other countries as well. Of course, nowadays, again, because of globalization, everybody seems to be in pants and shirts and pants and t-shirts. So that is more comfortable. So, you just seem to and you want to conform. So that's the other thing. So this is just, so culturally also when you, and why am I mentioning all this? Because when you interact with other countries, businesses from other countries, you need to understand these as well. Because, for instance, people from, say, Mali, they would be in their very traditional togas, and the women with their headdresses and all that when they come, even for formal occasions, when they come to see you. So sometimes you wonder it's so hot. How can they be wearing this? But they're comfortable. They're used to that. And you are in like I remember it was at a function in I think it was in Madagascar, and I had put on my sleeveless because it was just too hot. So I put on the sleeveless blouse and my sari, of course. But they were wearing these heavy clothes and silk clothes and the headdress and everything. And I was looking at them, and they seemed totally unconcerned, unaffected. It was really a hot and humid day, And so I was wondering, how can they even talk, So my sort of approach was to sympathize with them. I thought, aren't you feeling hot? I asked one of them whom I knew a little bit, because it would be very rude to ask someone I didn't know. She said, no, it's so nice because they are used to it. We don't realize it, but they are used to even hotter weather. She says, no, it's very hot in our country, more hotter than this. And this is very pleasant. Overall, Madagascar doesn't become so hot. It's quite pleasant in Antananarivo, which is it's on a hill actually. And so it is very, very nice weather there throughout the year. Only occasionally becomes for a short time hot and humid. And so, you have to understand that. Then I realized, yeah, okay, I shouldn't have even, been thinking about it. But anyway, sometimes you do, as you do in interacting in official matters. And just by the way, I'd like to divert a little bit again. Coming to Madagascar, when I was first posted to Madagascar, everybody asked me, everybody has seen this movie, Madagascar, which is about these animals who are, have come there. So everybody, even my little nephew, my cousin's little son, he was, I think, 2 years old. He was so excited. You're going to Madagascar, the movie Madagascar. He was talking about that. 3 years he was just beginning to talk. I said, no, but that's not the country, it's a movie. But they all knew about Madagascar, but they knew only about the animals there, the lemurs. But they didn't know anything about the country. So much ignorance is there, all over the world. So when I went there and I saw it was such a beautiful country, and because it was a French, the buildings and the capital city especially, so beautiful. Plus, our Indian businesses wanted to do business there, but they all hesitated. They said, there's no scope, is there? So they assume it is an Indian Ocean country, it's Africa, you don't have the facilities. You'll be, it's a very poor country. I said, yeah, all that is there. But at the same time, there are things, in some ways, they're much better off than us, better planned than us in many ways. So these conceptions and preconceptions that we have about different nationalities, about different countries, it comes into play even when we want to do business. And that is why when some of the Indians wanted to supply certain products to them, they said, no, we don't want from India because they will make a fool of us. I said, no, go to the good ones. Why do you want to go to the cheapest supplier? He said, no, we got this. And the second time he gave us, that's the other thing, credibility, which Indians especially infamous for. Everybody says first quality is good, second quality is bad. And so they would constantly say we don't want to do business with India. Some of them, not all of them, but those who had good experiences, of course, were continuing. So that's the other aspect to keep in mind, that just because a country is in Africa, or because people are not like you, that they're somehow inferior to you, or somehow they cannot, or they're open to bribery. That's the other thing. Indians have the same impression abroad, in most countries, that Indians are open to bribery, because the impression is, and I don't want to be negative about my own country, but I know that it is there. But still, it is not across the board. It's not everyone who's like that. And so we have to remember that it's not everyone and across the board. And we have to remember that when we are doing business as well. Then, so these are just something more about culture. I just had added this, your Ganesha or gestures, and heroes, Mandela, and Gandhiji is, associated with India. And yoga is associated with India, and rituals also, some activities are sort of conducted together. Some festivals are celebrated together. So these are all manifestations of culture. Now, international global businesses are a product of economic interdependence and high tech connectivity these days, including the use of artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence is, of course, changing the way businesses are conducted. Very often when you talk to a person, you get connected to a bot, and the bot is giving you the information about the company. So it becomes sometimes, it's very frustrating. You can't talk to a person. If you want to make a business inquiry, very often you're just getting a kind of a reply from a bot. So all that is being used, but we have to understand how to get around that. There are other ways of communicating, and you have to understand how how you can create a business, how you can do business, even with all these constraints. So artificial intelligence can also be used to benefit your business, to make it, to use, somebody, I attended a seminar once saying that, how blockchain can be used to connect all the suppliers of a particular variety or a particular product, and along with the range, and then that can be, connected to the buyers abroad. So that kind of use of artificial intelligence has to be made more and more for international and global businesses. Effective cross-cultural communication is very, very important. Business etiquette, of course, understanding differences will help avoid communication gaps. Now, communication gaps are a real, threat to deals not being closed. And we need to acknowledge that beliefs are different, ethical, cultural habits are different, as I just mentioned, bribery, etc. And we need to increase our knowledge of business customs and be value-based and ethical. That is very important. I find that we sometimes forget, as I just mentioned, we didn't, one of the companies from India, he had supplied footwear, children's footwear, and he supplied, and he didn't get paid for it. So it was a very strange thing. So we were trying to resolve the dispute. We said, why have he not been paid for it? So we took it up with the local authorities and with the company. And we said, why have you not paid this thing has come to you? He said, yes, it has come to me. But, so it's not ethical on our side alone. There are unethical people on the other side as well. So this person, in Paris, France, I'm talking about. And what he had done was he had opened up the line of credit, cancelled the line of credit, which cannot be done normally without talking to the person who has supplied. He cancelled that, and the bank cancelled it without a proper resolution. And this person said that I have thrown everything away. She said, how could you throw it away? It's always there. If you find it's defective, you call a representative of the supplier and you have a look at it and say that this is not okay, and therefore I will not take this consignment. But he did it. So unethical practices exist everywhere, and he refused to pay the Indian supplier. So things like this keep happening. So we have to keep that in mind also. It's not just because it's European that they'll be very ethical and very, honest. So you have to do your due diligence in any case. You have to check out the background. You have to check out the small companies and what is from, what kind of business reputation they have. That is an important aspect to keep in mind. So now why culture matters in business, or why I came up with this was that for developing appropriate products and services. Now, if you want to supply and do business in a particular country, for instance, if you want to supply or export clothes to a particular country, you cannot just supply saris and, ethnic Indian wear. You have to see what will be worn or what will be used in that country. What is the best? Similarly, any other product, any other, shoes, will they have open shoes? Will they have closed shoes? Will they want, sandals, or what kind of and the economic cost? So you have to do that full study, and that is why culture is very important in business, for understanding what kind of products and services you can provide. And then for communicating and interacting, of course, as we've already said, with foreign partners, and for selecting partners, and for negotiating and structuring business ventures. So when you're doing a joint venture, again, it's very important that you understand the cultural differences and you be able to strike a deal and conclude a deal. And for preparing advertising and promotional material also, for instance, you need to keep in mind what are the local sensitivities. And then for participating in trade fairs and exhibitions, you need to understand what will work there, what will not work, in terms of culture as well. Not only in terms of the demand, but also what is suitable and appropriate for a particular country when you are participating in trade fairs and exhibitions abroad. So this is just a little bit about communication. Conveying information between two people involves conveying ideas, instructions, and emotions, and is both verbal and non-verbal. I've already mentioned that. Then there are some cultural barriers to communication, sometimes pronunciation and body language, expressions, head nodding. Indians are, they consider Indians as, doing the side nod and the front nod, and it's become a big a part of jokes as well. But yes, it is a fact that sometimes this can happen, and handshake, etc. So these are barriers to communication. Sometimes in some countries you cannot do a handshake. It's not considered okay to do a handshake, and especially between men and women, it's not done. So you have to keep that in mind when you are communicating and when you are discussing something with another person abroad. So it is important to understand this, we've already said, to understand the leadership style also of the other person and focus on the commonalities and resolve conflicts and learn the do's and don'ts of the country and its culture and respect differences. It's a little repetitive, but I thought I'd just mention it again because it is important to keep these things in mind. And again, avoid slang. Some more communicating, you need to be aware and not miscommunicate or create any misunderstandings. Now, a little bit about business etiquette. I'll come to that as well. It could be defined as a set of manners that is accepted in a business setting and often becomes a custom. Etiquette is about basic values, social norms, and creating a positive and comfortable work and business environment for everyone. That is very important, that people don't feel uncomfortable when you're around. Because sometimes I find people tend to, sort of be a little haughty. And if you're doing very well in business, sometimes you say, you show off about what you can do and what your business and your company is doing. So that makes other people uncomfortable sometimes. So you have to be very careful. Of course, give all the plus points about your company. That is without a doubt very important. But do it in a nice matter-of-fact way. Instead of trying to be, haughty about it, or, I'm so good and the rest, everyone is down below somewhere. So that has to be avoided. Sorry. And there are various, sorry. And there are various types of etiquette, business etiquette at the workplace, where you have to be very, very careful, and you have to create, don't shout on the phone, don't talk loudly, don't disturb your other colleagues, have a good interpersonal relationship with everybody. So if in the workplace, if you want to work efficiently, you need to have a nice, comfortable workplace, and that is possible only if you follow certain basic etiquette and manners. Then table manners and meal etiquette. Now, this is another important thing when you're there for a business lunch meeting or a business over drinks or whatever. So again, it is important that you have the right table manners, that you inculcate, you pick up the right table manners. So you should know for a very formal setting that, because in a formal setting, the plate is in the middle and then you have your spoons on the side and they have courses, one after the other courses come. So you need to know what is to be used for which course. So it's normally from the outside to the inside. So you need to educate yourself in how to eat a formal meal and to use a fork and a spoon, especially in the Western context. But now increasingly in all contexts, abroad, everywhere, whenever you are talking in Africa also, everywhere, everybody in the formal setting, in the formal business meal, it's all very formal with spoon and fork. So you need to understand how you need to use, you need to know how to use, you need to learn how to use these forks and spoons and and be comfortable with them. And also not to reach across the table or say ask things to be passed to you. You keep a napkin on your lap. So all these little things need to be kept in mind for meal etiquette. And of course, no making loud sounds when you're chewing, and no spitting or burping on the table. And of course, they say in some of the Middle Eastern countries, they appreciate if you burp that you're full, but normally it is not considered very nice. So you need to follow these meal etiquettes as well when you're having a business meeting, a business lunch meeting, or a dinner meeting. And of course, you have to be very professional. In your professional professional etiquette has to be followed at all times. Integrity, when you make a commitment, don't make a commitment if you can't meet it. That was the other thing that we found, especially when Indian businesses, when Indian suppliers would come abroad, they would say, yes, yes, we'll give it in 1 month. But they don't deliver. So if you can't see through with your, whatever you have committed, please don't make a commitment. It not only ruins your business aspect, it also ruins the impression about other Indians. So you create a bad impression all over, and it's bad for the country as well. So that is very important, that you be professional and show professionalism at every step. And then communication, of course, is very important. Communication etiquette. I have to say, hello and politely, and may I know, and just be very polite on the phone, or even in your interpersonal, when face-to-face meetings. You need to be very, very polite, very well-mannered. Otherwise, many people don't appreciate it. Across the board. It's not only in the West, even in other countries, when you're doing with companies, they expect a certain level of politeness and no shouting and no haggling when you are communicating, when you are doing a business deal or business negotiation, or even making presentations. And of course, meetings etiquette and protocol also need to be followed. When you are having a conference meeting, about 10 people, 5 from their side, 5 from your side. And if you are conducting the meeting, then you need to give everybody a chance. You need to follow the protocol, senior people, junior people. So all that, and even in the office context, you need to be always respectful of hierarchy. If there is a hierarchy, more and more, I know that nowadays there's no hierarchy. Everybody's on first name basis. But that apart, you still need to be aware, and you can't be very familiar with people the first time round. You have to be aware whether if you are calling the other person by the first name and the other person is not comfortable, you need to, say, all right, I will call you ma'am or Mr. or Miss or whatever they are comfortable with. So all these etiquettes and these manners need to be kept in mind always and every time. And knowing what is acceptable or not is very important. In some cases, handshakes, as I mentioned earlier, are okay, but otherwise, no. Sometimes they like to have an informal exchange. Many countries, many people from people from many countries like to have some informal exchanges. How are you? How's your family, etc. Where are you staying, etc. Before formal talks begin. Americans sometimes just go to the business thing straight away, but overall, and Indians especially, of course, like to talk about family and other matters before they go. And especially when there are, even abroad, when you are doing a business to family, family-owned businesses, when you're negotiating, even they like to talk a little bit about how are you and things like that, and how's your family, how's your health, how are things, and then moves into the next formal negotiations. Then, of course, taking or giving of gifts is done in most countries, and you should always wrap it up, give it with both hands with humility. Otherwise, people sometimes get a little offended. So you have to be very careful when you are gifting as well, or accepting a gift as well. And it should not be something which is too expensive, because that is not a gift then, so you have to be careful on that as well. And a dress code is a formal dress code is normally preferred everywhere. Sometimes in some companies, they may not, in some meetings, they may not insist on that. But generally, everybody prefers that you are well turned out. And it's important for your own self-esteem as well, and for your own confidence. If you're well turned out, you will always, do things better. Then there are some cultural stereotypes, which are there. And these are very, sometimes right, but sometimes not so right. For instance, the French are considered logical, elitist, proud, artistic. And in this context, though I know, I don't mean it to hurt anybody, but it's just as in a very lighter vein. When I first went to Paris, one of our colleagues, who had been there for about 3 years, he was saying how, you're going to not find it very difficult to interact with the French if you have interacted with the Bengalis. So I was a little perplexed. I said, what is the connection, So he said, so it's no offense to the Bengalis, please, Dr. Shoma, Dr. Bhattacharya, no offense, or to any other, to all the Bengalis. It's just in a very lighter vein that he put it. He said there are 3 or 4 things which are common to the French and to the Bengalis. One, that they are extremely proud of their language. So I said, yes, that's true. So both the French are very proud of their language. The French are, and as well as the Bengalis are very, very proud of their language. They're very proud of their literary, accomplishments, literature, music, so which is also true for the Bengalis. Then the French love addas, they love sitting in the coffee houses and discussing, which is also again very true of the Bengalis. They also love discussing everything under the sun, business and politics, and everything is discussed at coffee shops. The French also love doing that, and the Bengalis also love doing that. And they're also, the fourth is that they love to, I've done all four, I think I've done all four. So these four commonalities are there between the French and the Bengalis. So if you know Bengalis, then you will have no problem interacting with the French. I said, okay, thank you. So it was just in lighter way that I mentioned this. So in France, if you want to do business, then you need to book your appointments for a meeting. Nobody just drops in casually. And for punctuality, they are a little flexible, and they love their courses of their meals when they're eating, if it's a business lunch, and they will discuss everything and be there for be for a long time over meals. It's a slow meal. And they should love to say that the French take 10 minutes to cook and 1 hour to eat. The Indians eat in 10 minutes and take 1 hour to cook. So it was an interesting observation by them, and they're always well dressed, and they like to give gifts and to receive gifts. The Chinese, on the other hand, are considered, the stereotype is they're quiet, hardworking, smiling, enigmatic, but that's not always the case. And for business, in the business context, yes, they would like gifts, but very politely, and they usually say no. And they're formal. They like formal clothes. They avoid physical contact, and usually must allow the Chinese to leave the room first after a business meeting. And the Americans, the stereotype is superficial, materialistic, optimistic. I think I've crossed my time, is it? Okay, another 5 minutes, I'll just be concluding. So they are considered superficial, materialistic, and over-optimistic, but that's not, again, fully true. And in the business context, they're a little informal, but they're very punctual. And sometimes they can be overbearing, and they like to go to the business talk straight away. So it sometimes can be very rude also. You're just getting into a room and they start saying, come on, start off again. They don't like wasting time, by and large. And about Indians, of course, unpunctual, untidy, talk too much, don't meet deadlines, etc. But that's the stereotypes. But the positives are that Indians are very sincere, hardworking, IT savvy, and they like to, by and large, they like to, do well, and most of them are ethical in their business dealings. So, and if you're posted abroad, I just thought I'd mention a little bit about if you are posted abroad, then it's important to prepare yourself. Sorry. It's important to prepare yourself and your family to life abroad, which could be very different from life at home. And you could be, you could be in the US or you could be in Africa. Everywhere you have to adjust because it's not the same as it is in India. So it is very, you have to be able to adjust, and you have to remember that you are alone there. You have no family or friends to depend on. It can be very lonely, stressful. A lot of people have mental, issues sometimes. The food that you eat may not be available. Now, again, because of globalization, it's available everywhere. Indian food is also available. You have an Indian restaurant almost in every city, main city abroad. As a matter of fact, I went to this place called Lourdes. You may have heard of Lourdes in France, Lourde. It's very famous, and it's a very holy place for the Christians. And there were 2-3 Indian restaurants. I couldn't imagine that there would be Indian restaurants. And there are a huge number of Indians who go there regularly, from Kerala, from Goa, from Pondicherry, from lots of places. I found a lot of Indians there. And there were 3 Indian restaurants. So it was very interesting. It's changing now, but it can be a dangerous environment in case you are in, like one of our colleagues was in the Ivory Coast, and there was shooting, there were bombs, rockets all around. And they had to be evacuated with a helicopter. So, it is can be a very dangerous environment sometimes. So you have to be prepared for everything when you are posted working abroad, living abroad. And you have to be very friendly with your colleagues and behave as a guest in the country. Do not be arrogant in less developed countries, and always be sensitive to the others. It is very important. And so it is important that we keep all these aspects in mind. And for Indians to conduct businesses, to conduct, businesses, to set up joint ventures in India with foreign companies, or vice versa, we need to keep all these things in mind. And communication, etiquette, and basic integrity are very, very important when you do business. Thank you so much. I'll conclude now. And if there are any questions, let me try and see if I can see the questions. I can't. I can.
Yes, ma'am, we have received one question, and that is, since we all have different cultures and differences, what is right for one can be different for others. If any of our action have offended someone, how should we apologize in a way they would understand our point of view and our intentions, which was not to disrespect them?
Yes, straight away, the minute you realize that you've done something wrong, you should apologize then and there. It is very important. You say, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize at all that this was something, like once when I was interacting with an Iranian diplomat, I did remember, he'd already told me the last time that they don't shake hands with ladies, but I'd forgotten. The next time I met him, I put out my hand to say, hello, how are you? He said, Aapka to namaste. He spoke, he knew a little Hindi. He said, Aapka to namaste hai na? So I said, oh, I'm so sorry, namaste. So, I had to really apologize. And yes, you told me the last time and it just slipped my mind. I'm really sorry. It was no offense. I was not wanting to, sort of put you into an embarrassing position. So, immediately you should apologize. The minute you realize that there is something, not correct, that you've been insensitive, that is why try and make yourself aware of their differences. And if by mistake you have said something, immediately apologize. Immediately. Any other questions? Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
No, ma'am, not as of now. Students, if you have any questions,
ma'am, can you stop
ask?
sharing your screen? Then we can see you better.
All right, sorry.
Since you finished, I mean, if you
yes, of course.
Nice to see you. Yes, students, you can put in your questions, please, for ma'am.
I'm so sorry.
No, ma'am, nothing. I mean, it's just to bring you more into the limelight rather than the screen. Okay.
So you can ask question on chat box.
Yeah.
You can
There's
write
another question. There is a third question. Achha, she said thank you. That's all. Sheena said thank you. Okay.
No question.
Okay. Chetna is saying, Achha, Joy Ganguly says, is there any way to emphasize upon haptic communication in case of language barriers?
Sorry, what is haptic? Sorry, pardon my ignorance.
That's a part of communication, non-verbal. So the sense of touch.
Sense of?
Touch.
Okay.
Gestures, hand movements, touch, those kind of things.
That you can do. Emphasize you can do that in case of language barriers. You can have hand movement and all that. That's okay. But again, I think many people don't appreciate your shaking your hands too much, especially the Western. And I discovered this because I have a great habit of doing that, So I had to be very careful when I was in a formal setting not to move my hands, because it can distract and, detract from your, and they might think, that they are not, you're assuming that they don't understand. So you have to give them all these hand gestures, So it can be rude sometimes. But of course, in some other cultures where they also do a lot of hand gestures and communication with hand movements, there it might be okay, but not by and large. This is my experience, that I found that they didn't appreciate it too much, at least in the West, in Europe at least. With whatever interaction I had with them, they didn't really want too much of hand gestures, because otherwise, they felt it distracted from the communication that we had, and they said, maybe you don't know that, you're trying to tell us that we don't understand what you're saying. And of course, you need to speak slowly. And that was another problem that I had because I had to talk very fast. So today I don't know how fast I've spoken, but I should speak extremely fast. And they couldn't understand what I was saying very often. So then I had to repeat myself. And then at the end of it, I was speaking so slowly. I'm back to speaking very fast, but I was really speaking too slowly most of the
time. You made yourself into an old lady.
So I said, no, I have to speak slowly, otherwise they won't follow me. And so, it used to be
Vanshika has asked an interesting question. She's saying, is wearing ethnic formals considered, 1 minute. She's saying, is ethnic formals like saris, etc., considered in bad taste or not acceptable in other cultures? I don't think that is correct. Anyway, ma'am will answer.
They really appreciate that you're in your saris and your whatever traditional dresses. But the thing is that I think as far as saris go, that changed a little bit in the early after economic liberalization, and after many people started coming to India and they started understanding what India is. So they did appreciate Indian ethnic wear, and they wear it also. They love wearing these saris, so-called ready-made saris. And as a matter of fact, in France, Bollywood dance, Bollywood dresses are quite the rage. They have Bollywood classes regularly there. And so it used to be only in the Middle East, that they had Bollywood singing. If you meet, I met an African once not an African, he's a diplomat, but I met him at in Paris. He was from, I think, Central African Republic. So he suddenly broke out into an Amitabh Bachchan song, So I was a little, I said, pardon, beg your pardon. He said, no, Amitabh's song, he's very famous, we love him, Shah Rukh Khan, and he started singing another song, So it's these, the soft power of our Bollywood, of our television serials, they're so popular because we are all dubbed in French as well. So they understand that. The songs are, of course, in Hindi, but they can, because they are catchy and they enjoy Bollywood movies, so they remember the words as well. So it's very interesting that they would sing Hindi songs suddenly, And ethnic formal for the Africans still, they look at them a little, they're not upset about it, but they're not very positive towards it, let me put it that way. Because, but with the saris and with the salwar kameez or the Indian dress, they are quite comfortable. And they quite admire that we are still carrying on with these, with our traditional clothes and wearing it in the formal setting. Whereas in, many of them say that we've lost our ethnic clothes and our ethnic traditional clothes because we stopped wearing them. And we just thought pants and suits are much more comfortable. So some of them, even men, they would tell us that, what lovely saris and, it's very nice. And that's the other thing I just remembered. You mustn't always compliment or comment on the woman, on the women in a business meeting. Be careful on that as well, because many will take offense. But that apart, by and large, for the sari and for the salwar kameezes, it was always, it was no problem at all. I never sensed, even in business meetings, or I didn't hear from anyone that they didn't, that they didn't like it or it was considered rude. But I found, yes, when the African diplomats or others came in with their traditional headdress and their traditional clothes, or even with their, what's it called, the abaya, the head scarf, the veil, they were not very happy with it somehow. So I think it's again a mindset thing that, because they are Muslims and they have some bias against them. Maybe, I think, I don't know. But there was a slight, not very positive feeling for those. But I don't think it ever affected their business dealings. But yes, it was considered a little not okay as far as that is concerned.
There's another question, ma'am, from Madhuranti, and she says, there are situations where we are openly dominated and we happen to become angry. How do we deal with anger management at that moment?
Sorry, say it again, please.
She's saying sometimes, Indians, or probably she means that we are openly dominated, probably discriminated. That's what you are wanting to say, Madhurante. So you become angry, and then how do you manage that anger? How can you how do you manage that anger when you are angry because you felt that somebody has discriminated?
Insulting you, yes. I think the first thing is to understand that the insulting is their problem, not ours. I think we have to first of all understand that we should not allow them to needle us. Maybe they are needling us on purpose, especially in business negotiations or even in the work situation. Sometimes it is deliberate, putting you down so that you feel, and to provoke you. So that is important, that you cannot and should not be provoked. That is very important, because who's going to be the loser? You. Whether it's a business deal or an office situation. And you have to control your anger. Anger management is something that I think we need to practice even in our day-to-day lives. Not only in our international interactions, but in our day-to-day lives. Because I'm sorry, I also do some stress management and these kind of lectures I've done in the past. So I'm sorry, we have to understand that anger only makes us, in a vulnerable position, and we are the ones who will suffer if we get angry. So we have to begin that on a daily basis of not getting angry. I know we can't all become swamis in a day. I'm not saying that, but at least you should attempt and move in that direction. That control your anger and say, it's okay. Is it going to affect me if I keep quiet for the moment? And respond in a calm, appropriate manner to whatever has been said to you. And you will see that you will be the winner. Because if you are going to respond in anger, you are going to say the wrong thing. Very often, you say the wrong thing, which you didn't want to say. Or you could even just say, okay, I don't want to carry this discussion forward, and walk off. So who is the sufferer? So you have to understand, and you have to realize what is more important. If it doesn't matter to you, you can walk out. That is separate. If you think this is not important, whatever negotiation or whatever is going on, and you can afford to walk out, you say, okay, fine. I don't want to, this is too much, and I cannot deal with this, and you walk out. So you have to see the pros and cons before you allow your anger to be, to sort of take over. I hope that answers your question.
We have another question from Bhavita, who says, how can we handle a cross-cultural conflict with someone for a situation which needs to be sensitively handled?
So cross-cultural conflict could arise, as we've been discussing, due to differences in perception. I'm saying something and you are saying something, we're talking at cross purposes. So we are not going to reach any conclusion. So what is important is to re-communicate, open your communication again, and talk again in more simple language. Maybe sometimes language is a barrier, because sometimes we tend to, especially Indians, but others as well, we know in our minds what is there. We are very clear, but when we have put it across in a way with the assumption that the other person's mind is also very clear and they've also understood the background. But sometimes it is not so. And so when that happens, there will be conflict. They say, we said this and you said this, and you might get into a you said, I said match. So you have to restart your talk and say, no, this is what we said. And put it down in more simpler language, and you can think that the other person doesn't know anything. And go from step A, B, C, D, E, F, reiterate in a simple way. That's the best way to do it, as it is also important in interpersonal relations, but also in the business context, to have clear communication. Because if you don't have clear communication, you will have conflict, always and every time.
Thank you. And we have another question from Joy, who says, on international levels, is it a challenge to disagree with someone or their ideologies? What should we take into account before turning down someone?
This ideologies is always going to be a little problematic, always and every time. If you disagree with their ideologies and you think it's going to be a factor in your business relationship, just say, sorry, we'll get back to you. and move out of the negotiation then and there. And try not to take that negotiation forward, because if that is going to be an issue, I think it's no point having any kind of business deal. But let me also clarify one thing from what I have seen. Ideologies usually don't play any role in business. Usually. It's always clear, they're very clear in their minds that, that business is different, ideology is different. So that is why you will find Indians also and other foreigners also doing business with India. The ideologies are completely different. Some have a communist ideology, some have a socialist ideology, some have a religious ideology, but they're all doing business with each other. In India too, you have different ideologies at play. But usually, my experience has been business people don't mix ideology, usually mix ideology with religion. And so if it is a challenge and you think, it can be a challenge if you have gone into negotiation and that they say, no, this is our, according to our religion or according to this ideology or communism or whatever ideology, we want you to do this, and you cannot do it for that reason. So you don't have to say it is on the, don't have to give the reason. There's no necessity of saying that I don't agree with your religion or your ideology or your beliefs. You can just say, I think I will revert back to you, and then you can reply saying, sorry, I think we cannot take this forward. End of matter. I think do it in a nice, polite, always correct manner. Never be confrontationist and try and avoid conflict as far as possible, because it doesn't serve any purpose. As I said, in your interpersonal relations as well as in your international or interbusiness relations. Yeah.
So true, ma'am. So true. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. I think most of the questions have been answered. We are not getting any more. May I request Professor Ashok Bhattacharya to kindly give a vote of thanks. Thank you, Ashok sir.
Thank you, ma'am, for giving us such an enlightening talk on actually what culture, perceptions, communication, adapting into the international scenario for business and other purposes are. It was really great for us to listen to all what you said. One thing that I carried away from your talk was that each one of us in our growing up in our native society are conditioned by certain perceptions and understanding of things around us. I think once you have to react in the international setting or interact in the international setting, I think that is something that you need to actually hold back and try and understand what other perceptions and the cultural nuances of the other country that you're involved in and operate. So therefore, what you actually told us was that you cannot run into it with the stereotype that you actually carry for about things around you.
Yes,
I think I thought I'll give two examples for me personally that happened.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
We Indians operate from a mindset that there's we Indians operate from a mindset that there's a scarcity of everything. Yes. So therefore, wherever we go, we have this tendency to rush into things.
Yes.
So I remember the first time I went to Europe, I was in Schiphol airport, and there was this cash counter where people are exchanging, their currency to get the local currency. So I was in an anxiety. So therefore, the person standing in front of me, I was virtually leaning over his shoulder. And the person at the counter said, give him space.
Absolutely. Space is very important. Yes, I forgot to mention that.
And that's something I took away with me.
Yes,
and another thing I remember, I had gone for a program in Bahrain, which I was conducting. And we are supposed to have got gender sensitized. So we had this Arab sheikh who was talking continuously. Though Bahrain is one of the relatively more modern Islamic states.
Yes.
But there was this lady in the room she was trying continuously to get her word in. And this man just wouldn't give her the opportunity. So I just went and cut the person and invited the lady to talk. it was a huge offense that I committed, you know. How could you have actually stopped a man from talking?
Yes, from talking and asking a lady to speak.
And invite a lady. So therefore, gender sensitization is so important. In any way, I thought to sum this up, this is what I took as my learning, and I hope all the students did the same.
Yes, thank you. I can't hear you now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Oh.
I'm saying that thank you very much, and thank you for finding the time for us. Thank you.
You're most welcome. It was a pleasure. I hope the students have really
Yes,
something.
I'm sure they have, ma'am. They'll take away from your experiences, and hopefully sometime in the future we'll see you on campus to interact a little more. Thank you again. Thank you so much. Stay safe, ma'am. Stay safe.
Thank you.